Oh, great. I know. I really like that.
Well, if you want to talk, we can talk to the trade. You can always just put the TM circle and.
Yeah.
maybe-
I think we already put in for the trademark, I know for the.
On this design, okay, I know
Yeah.
there were a couple trademarks.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Okay,
We canceled the other one and put in for this.
okay.
Terrible one.
The terrible one is gone. Anyone can use it now.
Yellow.
I was gonna say that, right? Wonderful yellow.
Mhm.
All right, folks online, can you hear me? Okay. All right, so let's get started. So welcome everyone to the November ErieNet Local Development Corporation Board meeting. Time now for the record is 1:05. I will take roll. Mike Breeden. Here. Mr. Cornell,
Present.
Mr. Toth.
Here.
Mr. Keating.
Present.
Mr. Castle.
Here.
Slater Mills.
Here.
Let the record show that Legislator Myers and John Spears are both online. We're joined today by ErieNet Legal Counsel Bob Murray. We also have online Matt Kreider from ECC and also Andy from ECC online. We do have a quorum. All right. Next order of business. Any questions or comments on the October minutes? If there are none, may I have a motion to approve the second? Motion by Castle, second by Mike Breeden, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, abstentions, passes. There's no report of the chair on this month, and we can go right into the executive director's report.
Okay, great. So as you have every month, the expenses are attached for your review. I'm not gonna go through those. So some of the so Matt Kreider is a little under the weather, so he's on, but I have agreed to, I'll do the report this month for ECC. He's not feeling well, and when he starts talking, he coughs a lot, so we thought it might be best if I do that. So we'll go ahead and skip to his report. So, of course, there were.
Thank you, Missy.
Yeah. What's that?
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I thought you said attention. Yes. So for the construction, design and construction, a couple of highlights that I would give out here is that we have started construction. We've been laying conduit. And does anybody want to guess where that construction has started?
Boston Colton.
Oh, did I put it on the report?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I called.
Just really knowledgeable.
Oh, well, I'm glad that you're reading your report. So I called Jason to let him know, but I just want to tell us really brief. I know it's not a super long meeting, so I can tell it's really brief, funny story, but we were in, I think, Concord.
Yeah.
And we were talking and they're very interested, and the supervisor said, well, I mean, is it going to be, we'll probably be the last. And I said, well, you never know. You just never know. And literally they are on the list of some of the first. So Boston, Colden, Concord. And so they were very excited that I was able to call and let them know. And this is just the underground and some conduit, but it was actually for the South Town, something I think that was good for us to not start in the city, not start in Amherst, So that's kind of the exciting thing there. We had some holdup on our Verizon contracts and some work that Verizon was doing because we were in the middle of trying to secure a $500,000 bond, which then turned into a $500,000 letter of credit, which is the angle we went with. That is finally done, and Verizon has their letter of credit, and so that work is continuing on. Every week they're updating for the make readies. MAC gets a bunch back from our contractors, and so that process is moving along smoothly. We were able to fully execute quite a few contracts this week as well. I think those are more of the make ready contract. And I'm sorry, Matt, if I'm wrong on exactly what those work do, but the power line, the Hogland, Danella, those were all done. There's
I
what's
think excuse me, the important thing I think for the board to realize is that we're more than on schedule to submit all 12,000 of the utility poles to the utilities for their make ready assessment by year end. And so that starts the utilities make ready construction, they get our applications, return to us the scope of work that the contractors, excuse me, contractors are required to perform. And then, that's the bulk of the make ready work that has to happen before we can release our ErieNet fiber installation. So that's going well. The permitting with the city of Buffalo needs to be resolved, and we're working on some actions to try to expedite that and try to get the city to make a decision. But I'll let Missy address that.
Mhm. Yeah, so I have that on my update. We do have some steady delays. I think some other good news under the operation is ECC Technologies. They're developing a lit service plan. This is really important, obviously, for our municipal customers and public safety. So they're putting that together. We're looking and speaking with several ISPs, internet service providers, to partner not only for the lit service piece, but maybe on, and I'm going to talk about this in a little bit, but on some future funding applications, specifically Connect All. And we'll talk about that more in detail. ECC is working with the E-rate service providers, and we have, Matt, just an update for you. We are able to, or we've been successful in getting the numbers that you need, and so we'll get that over to you. The Buffalo Public Schools has reached out to us, and they are going out soon for an RFP for fiber. And so we want to make sure that we're ready on the E-rate piece so that we can bid on that. And we do feel we can do that successfully. So that was really good news. That's why Buffalo is becoming more of an importance. It's been an importance, but even more so, because I believe that RFP is going to be going out in the next month, maybe 2 months, like soon.
Is that just purely coincidental?
It is, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, they've had a 15 or 20 year, I think Matt said yesterday, a 20-year contract with Crown Castle.
Huh.
And
They've exhausted their renewal options, and they have to do a rebid.
I mean,
And
that's,
it's perfect for us. It's
Yeah.
a great opportunity. Crown is there at all the school sites with Crown Fiber. So, it's not a walk in the park for us. We're going to have to be as competitive as possible, as we will with the libraries and everyone else. So, but it'll be a great customer if we can land it.
how do we know how long of a turnaround once the RFP is issued, how long we're gonna have to respond? Any ideas?
Yeah, they'll probably give about 6 weeks. But they
Yeah.
also realize that there's a potential build for any new provider. And so they're not looking for service until, excuse me, they're not looking for service until July 1st, 2026. So it's ideal for our construction schedule as well. So, we're just putting together our plan for how we can most efficiently deliver the service to them.
And
we
the
have some,
good news,
we have some competitive ideas on how we can present a better plan than the competitors.
and the good news is the city of Buffalo actually referred Buffalo Public Schools to us. We're just hoping they'll refer themselves to us as well. Some other good news.
While we're on the city of Buffalo, the Buffalo Urban Development Corporation, one of their initiatives, they have a number of initiatives downtown. And you're probably aware of this, Bob, but it's downtown walkability, the technology hub called Race for Place, where they're looking at a high-tech corridor up Washington Street from the arena all the way up to the medical campus. Investing a lot of money in smart streets, complete streets, whatever, high technology things. And I've talked to Brendan Mahaffey, who's kind of leading that effort. And he's very interested in, having some kind of dedicated fiber along that route because it connects to this building and just this focus on the technology. That is another thing that may be of interest to the city, is to have that area serviced quickly.
Yeah.
If we can say, early on, we could have fiber up Washington Street that would that could be a nice feather in their cap.
Yeah, so we can talk a little bit more about the city of Buffalo. So where we are with them is we had a really large meeting back in September where we had discussed several options with them, and we made some offers in terms of exchanging the service agreement fees for additional connectivity and funding towards their buildings being connected. We didn't hear back for a really long time. We finally did hear back, and I don't remember if that was an update in the last board meeting. I believe it should have been. It's been a while, where we did hear back with some legal revisions to the revisions that we made. And we made a determination that it might be beneficial for us to review further with those involved in those decision-making exactly what ErieNet is and the opportunity that it can bring to Buffalo, what an open access network is, how it can benefit their community, how it can benefit their municipality. And it's just, we feel that maybe they're struggling with that concept, and that might be why we're having a little bit of a pushback or some delay. We also feel that maybe the right players aren't doing the communication piece. They're looking at these adjustments that are done on these service agreements. And so we are trying to connect with them again, just to go over, give them a little bit more information and review some of the numbers with them so they get an understanding of the greater impact. One thing that will be included, and this is good information, Dan, is all of the entities that are interested in connecting or utilizing our open access network and how important it is to those entities. One of them being obviously the Buffalo Municipal Housing Authority, who we are looking to do a partnership application with additional funding from Connect All with. And there's 4,100 units of residents, very low income, obviously, who will benefit from that. Not to mention that anytime we connect with a large entity, right? Buffalo Public Schools, anyone that has multiple locations, that wasn't in our original footprint, that expands our footprint, and that expands the amount of access that could be opened up to others. And so the more we can do that with government funding and the less cost that it is to us, the less cost we have to put onto those types of entities, including municipalities like the city of Buffalo. And so I think once, and I'm not saying the city of Buffalo, that they don't understand because there's a lack of interest or understanding, but we have found that with most municipalities and customers that we have been speaking to, it takes about 2 to 3 meetings for them to get it. And so, but once they get it and they understand the concept and the benefit that it will bring to their community, the more in they are and excited about it and open to possibilities of even them putting in capital investment, given the effects that it could have on their community. So I think that's where we just have to get Buffalo, and I believe they'll be there, and we have several people working on it. It's just, it just takes a little bit longer with that large of an entity.
Have you talked to the sewers folks over there, OJ, McCoy?
No, not for Buffalo yet, no.
Yeah, I think they will be extreme. Just I know Joe Fiegel's interested at County Sewers, have his own dedicated fiber connecting all their facilities. I think the Buffalo Sewers would be equally as interested in having their own dedicated fiber network.
Right. Yep, we can get on that. So that's kind of in a nutshell, the update on the city of Buffalo. We have a 1-page proposal that will go out again once we have this dedicated kind of smaller meeting to get some of our points and across that I just spoke about. So regardless, we have to make some decisions about moving forward anyway. City of Buffalo will come into play regardless of what happens, and we will be in the city of Buffalo. So it's not really an option, given the fact that our point of presence is here in the city of Buffalo. We'll get there. It's just not happening as quick as some people would like, but I'm optimistic, as I always am, that we will get through that. So that's kind of an update there. Some other good news is our IRA Master Service Agreement has been finalized. That's the agreement that we'll be offering to those that want to sign up for service. And so that was a big piece of our proposal. That was finalized about a week ago. Our ErieNet website and social media. I do want to stop here for 1 second. So that's up. We have about 2 to 3 posts going out weekly, and we wanted to do that because we're going to start doing some media on ErieNet coming up in the next couple weeks. We are going to be doing some social media with the county executive. What I think would be very helpful is if those of you that are on community or on social media in any way could help share that. I know you all liked it, but if you could help share that, we're hoping the county executive will, anybody from the county who has followers, that should help get that out there as well and spread it. So we're just asking for that. There's been very informative posts. I don't know if you see them, but you should read them, share them on your spaces. And that's kind of what we've been doing, LinkedIn and Instagram, social, Facebook and Twitter. Yep, thanks. Or whatever it is now, X. Sorry, yeah. We've had multiple meetings, initial meetings, as well as proposal meetings. So those are going very well. We've already talked about the school districts. One thing I'd like to mention is the Bills Stadium. So those talks are continuing. We did have a safety meeting with the county, with Dan Neverith, as well as, the sheriff's supposed to be there. I don't believe they were, but they're going to be intertwined in this as well in terms of their needs. I think we're going to bring Mike, I think you're going to be in on the next level one. But we are getting a better understanding and what their needs are at the stadium, which seem to be great, actually, and how we can assist with that. And even potentially might be able to assist with their current needs. I don't know, but I feel like there's some angle that we might be able to look at that. Because they are really struggling with their connectivity even today.
Running out of bandwidth out there.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
just because so many people are out there and that they don't have enough cell towers and so forth to handle all of the traffic. When you put, 40,000 people out there, and it really hampers the emergency services side of the going.
I mean, I know as a season ticket holder, I cannot use my cell phone within a mile of the,
Yep.
so even when, if you're there tailgating early, I can receive a phone call and that's about it. I can't send or receive text. It's bizarre, but yeah, so we feel very positive about the way that those meetings are going and how we can improve.
I know that the town of Orchard Park and town of Hamburg are very much interested in the economic development opportunities around the stadium. Should we be talking to them about rolling out service at the same time?
So that's all
a separate
included.
initiative.
They're separate, but they're all in our initial, they're in our priority list. We have been having a difficult time getting a meeting set up with the town supervisor for Orchard Park. So I specifically went to the government's meeting, the Erie County government's meeting on Thursday, and he was supposed to be there and wasn't.
It was in Orchard Park, wasn't it?
It was in Orchard Park. He was hosting. So I'm going to try to call a cell phone again and see, but if anyone wants to reach out, oh, John, that might be good for you. That's an important one. They need to understand the priority there, especially since they have the stadium. We'll be in Orchard Park anyway, but I think it can help their public safety pieces as well.
I'll reach out too.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. Yeah, we're having a little bit of trouble with it. Joanne from the village was all in, but we need to get to the town supervisor.
Okay.
And so the Connect also, we'll go back to my report because I believe that's on there. So we did the City of Buffalo. So this past week, I was able to go down to Binghamton, New York, where they had a Southern Tier Rural Broadband Conference. It was their second annual. It was fabulous, honestly. So much information came out of that. ECC Technologies was down there as well. I got to meet with some of our team that I haven't met with in person before. I met with briefly with Joe Starks, who's the president of ECC. So we've had some really productive talks. And I got to meet with Jeff Gasper, who is the he's the CEO of Southern Tier Network. And we're going to actually meet up for breakfast in a couple weeks and talk a little bit about some things. But most importantly, Connect All was there. And right before we went down, we actually had a really productive meeting with Josh Breibert. I don't think I say his name right, Brian Bart, from Connect All. And one thing that he was really helpful in getting us to understand is the difference between the couple of the funding that's coming available very soon. So there is a municipal infrastructure piece to the Connect All funding that is ARPA money, which is the same as we have, right? So we have 34 million of ARPA funding. Well, we did, now it's dwindling, but we have that. They also have $100 million in ARPA funding, and they are looking for in the ground or shovel ready projects that can utilize this municipal infrastructure funding now. And they don't have the application out, but he went into detail with us about it and how it could benefit ErieNet and gave us the opportunity to kind of think through that a little bit before the application comes out. We anticipate the application will be out either next week or the first week of December. And basically, some of the ideas that we have, and these are just ideas and some things that we're exploring, is as we've been meeting with municipalities, some of the bigger struggles are that there is a capital cost usually if they want to make sure that they're in, we can get to most of their buildings on the 34 million, but let's give you an example of town of Hamburg and the town of Evans. They are very spread out in their municipality. Their buildings are spread out. Their highway department is very south in the town of Hamburg. And then the town of Evans, which is not even in a ring of our configuration, is kind of very spread out with where their library versus where their town hall is versus their their highway and town hall are together, but they have some other infrastructure that they want connected. It's extremely expensive lift for the municipality. So we're looking at ways that we can, and East Amherst is another one. Amherst, we're pretty good, but the East Amherst, which is growing and has a lot of potential for growth, not only on their residential side, but on their business and manufacturing side, it's a big lift for them to get fiber out there. So we're looking at pockets like that. Boston's actually an example because where Boston's town hall is versus where their library and their business center and one of their fire halls is kind of spread out. So we're looking at those types of examples of how we could look at that cost and maybe add that in as partnerships for this Connect All funding. Because it specifically states a couple of goals, one of which is making sure that municipalities are connected, but also that they are reaching residents, right? So again, it goes back to that theory that I said, the more entities that sign on early on, especially, and the larger we can grow our footprint, the more community members that's going to touch. So if we can get a significant amount of Connect All funding to grow our initial build, then we are meeting some of Connect All's goals, but more importantly, we're meeting the needs of the community, which was kind of our second tier goals, which was residential and business. So we're looking at that as a potential. So ECC Technologies is working on designs to kind of include maybe some more public safety meetings, looking at these pockets of towns that have a larger structure and a larger lift, or potentially even all 25, 26 municipalities being able, if there's enough funding, being able to look at the cost for that. The other part of that is partnering with an internet service provider. And that is a goal, obviously, of Connect Alls, is to connect with as many residents as possible. And so if we can find an internet service provider that will be doing some of our lit service, but also potentially partnering with us in a Connect All, we could lower their costs to come into these rural communities and start connecting these rural homes at a very low cost and starting that model. And the third kind of more important one, which we may find other partners as well, is the Buffalo Municipal Housing Authority. We're looking at partnering with them on this Connect All application as well. Connect All has a huge goal of units for low income. I think it's about 120,000 across the state. And we know just through Buffalo Municipal Housing Authority, it's 4,100 units that we could connect and kind of check that off. So overall, a long story short, Thomas wants me to probably stop talking, but a long story short is Connect All, we are a perfect program and a perfect project at their state and their concerns about spending this money. And I don't know how many of those are out there. There could be hundreds. I don't think there are. I think there's
Yeah, I don't think there are.
that are where we are. Yeah.
Directors.
Yeah.
They've either got it like Southern Tier West, or they'd like to have it.
Exactly. There's one in
Financial
central.
timing is gonna be
Exactly.
problematic because all of that money, I mean, they would be fine in terms of like, even kind of tight with the commitment side of it, but the money still has to be expended by the end of 2026. And if there are, networks that are being envisioned right now, that they are a year behind us, that's never gonna happen.
Right. So I think it might be us and maybe one or two others. I know there's one in central New York. That is where we are. They had applied for another big grant they did not get. So I think the potential for us to double our network is there. So we are working very hard. ECC Technologies, Andy in particular was on that meeting. We're really working hard to try to come up with the best scenarios that will benefit the most with the vision that we originally had in our almost second tier. So that's more to come. We're actively working on it. And then just real quick, there is a second side of the Connect All funding. That's the BEAD funding. That's not ARPA funding. That's that infrastructure bill from the federal government, where we don't look as good in that one because it's really going to affect more rural. Now, I'm not to say we're not going to apply for it eventually. I think there will be opportunity for us to use that money. But this is the one where I feel I almost feel like they're looking at us saying, I hope you can use this money. So we got to come up with a good plan. Andy, did you want to add anything to that?
You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry about that. No, there's not much to add. I mean, you were really, really good with all the details that you were throwing out there on that. But ultimately, I think we're in really good shape to get access to those funds. And so, yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, what, Bob, I mean, when you say access to the funds, are we talking 10 million? Are we 100? Are we thinking 10, 20, 30?
So that's the research we're doing now.
Okay.
I would hope that we could potentially be looking at 30 to 40 million.
That would be nice.
That'd
be very nice.
And we could probably do a few tiers of that because we really don't know. I mean, it felt good on that phone call with Josh, but expressing that there's money out there. I might be completely off. So I feel like we should prioritize the projects that we're putting in, but hope that we could get them all in. And then, the question comes, can we do all of that? I think we can. I
I was gonna say, pun intended, do we have the bandwidth to do all of this stuff? You've just highlighted 3 or 4 really exciting, but what seemed like pretty laborious additions. Like, at least the way everything's been described with the city of Buffalo is that's gonna be some of the hardest network to create. And if you're going to add into schools, they're kind of all over the place. They're not centralized. Then BMHA, then thinking about trying to hit all of these other, maybe pocketed residential areas, which I'm assuming we'd need to have some sort of anchor tenant in that area.
Yeah, so those would be the ISP, right? So we would basically be, yes, expanding our fiber, which I do believe, I'm sure Andy can confirm, we are prepared to do that. You've got to remember, so we are looking to be completed in mid-2025. We have until the end of 26 to really complete the project. So if you look at that time frame, we have basically double the amount of time right now to do that. And so I don't think it's a heavy lift. Now, I'll go out there and put the fiber out myself.
It's a heavy lift.
It is, but I think it's doable.
It's a heavy lift. But
It's a heavy lift, but I'll tell you, it's also something that I know we've had experience working with before. So for instance, when we were working with Southern Tier Network, we were building their network. We helped them get a grant for Southern Tier Network expansion. We helped them also get a grant for Yates County's expansion and bring them in as well. So trust me, I had hair before we started that. But it is definitely doable, but you're absolutely right. It is a very, very heavy lift.
And we have the capacity on the design, engineering, construction side. The key thing, Missy, and I think you touched on it, is we also have to find a partner. So when we do go after these affordable housing locations, or where we do build out into areas that we're looking to expand the network, we need a partner that can light that fiber and provide the internet service to those MDUs, those multi-dwelling units that are high on the target list for Connect All, which we have several that we're approaching, and I think we'll have more than one to go forward. But yeah, there's a lot in play right now.
I think at least BMHA sounds like a really clever avenue because they can almost be an anchor institution and a residential at the same time.
Mhm. Yeah. And they're not, just so you understand, we have met with BMHA. Their residents are not connected at all.
Mhm.
So some of their sites do have a community room where they can connect, they can get Wi-Fi, but they don't have their own service. Now, their future projects, it's the law that they have to provide that. But in existing locations, they do not. So this would be
There
big.
would still have to be an ISP involved.
There will,
Right?
we
would
have to
connect
partner.
to, like their facilities, but we're not
Exactly.
putting the cabling and giving internet access to each individual.
No.
unit.
There's that's why we need ISPs. And and even in Binghamton, to wrap that piece up, we did have some conversations with some smaller ISPs that are potentially interested in working. So, and I know ECC is working hard on those partnerships.
Thomas, do you think there's an avenue here to connect some of this in with the affordable housing projects that
Oh,
we're
sure,
gonna be working
sure.
on?
Absolutely.
I mean, that maybe makes it sound like it makes these connect all projects sound, it increases our score
Yeah.
potentially, but the timeline is also there. I mean,
Same, yeah.
maybe not the single family
well,
side of it,
Yeah.
but at least the
It'll be there.
multifamily
Yeah.
component that we're talking about, that
Certainly.
We can talk about that. So that's kind of the Connect All and Southern Tier update, or the broadband conference update. Any other before we move on? I have a lot of information, so I appreciate your time on that. So our fiber did arrive. The half of the last half has arrived. The rest will be coming the first week of December, which we're really excited about. So it'll all be here. So if the weather stays nice and they're able to start construction, I believe they will be.
I pulled out of the Raft Building parking garage yesterday and there's a big 18-wheel truck in front of the Raft Building.
I saw it.
And I thought of you. I'm like, oh no, they're not looking for Thomas, are they?
Well, what?
Yeah, if they were walking around with a clipboard going, we got about 18 tons.
I kind of went by slowly. The back was.
Oh my God.
This makes me nervous.
I won't forget that morning.
Time for this, Christmas.
Yeah. And then but my favorite was the pictures of you guys, like literally like on top of it or something. It's really funny.
I want to see these fibers.
All these guys.
I want to see them.
Here's what the phone
Yeah,
number
well,
is.
I want to
go
trip.
to the Aurora
We
Barn.
could go out there, yeah.
I
It's-
wanna
it's
see
in
it. Looking for
Westfall.
houses.
We could do a field trip.
Yeah, we could get a
Scramble.
video of that.
Who is physically, what person is there? Is it just?
It's a county, it's a DPW county, yeah.
Okay.
They're storing it for us.
They won't let you in.
Oh, they might let me in. I know some people. I know some people.
Well, it's outside, so if you could probably go, it can be outside, it's outside, yeah.
Okay.
The other thing too, couple highlights for next year, is that we are going to be changing our board meetings to 2 PM. There's a real good reason for that. So I hope that this works for everybody. So it'll be the third Tuesday of every month, as it has been. But we are going to have a lot more committee meetings. So if you're involved in a committee, if you're not, we'll get you on one, but, because this is our year that we have to start our annual reports. We want to start our budget process earlier and more efficiently. And so, those committee meeting schedules will come out in December. But in order to kind of accommodate that and to keep your schedules tighter, we decided that we'll be doing the committee meetings prior to the board meetings. So you don't have to make 2 separate times. And so we thought you could come at 1 for your committee meetings if there happens to be one that month, and then 2:00 will be the board meetings. Does that work for everybody? Okay, there is a handout that shows in your packet that shows all of the meetings. We had originally thought we would do August if needed, but we're gonna move that to July as a maybe not meeting, only because we need to start our budget process in August. And so that'll be, that's a good time for us to get that started, and so that just works out better. Of course, every meeting is if needed, but now that we're getting into kind of a busier time frame up through the April 1st deadline of our ABO requirements and annual reports, I
March
see us.
19th is gonna be the big meeting.
Yeah, so that's our annual meeting.
Yep,
So the March 19th, 2024 will be our annual meeting. That's where we'll present our annual, reporting and financials and our ABO that will be submitted. So anyway, that maybe we should have put that on there, but March 19th is a big meeting, so hopefully everybody can make that one. Other than that, any questions on the board of directors meeting? So just again, committees, mainly governance and the audit and finance committee will be coming out with those schedules. We're looking kind of at the land bank with the governance because they haven't met yet, but we do have some priorities for the governance committee that we're going to be giving to you in December for review and expect that there'll be a January meeting. Mainly looking at the bylaws again, of course, but I think we have to review all of our policies annually.
That's right.
So looking at that, we do have some recommendations of the bylaws, specifically that committees can meet if they need to on an emergency basis, that they can meet and vote virtually. That's one that we would like to look at.
Right, and that one meeting remotely is really right now just limited to if you have a designated like health reason or you have to take care of a family member. So we can't just carte blanche pass a remote meeting policy. There are still some guardrails up on.
Makes sense.
Right, but I don't think we even have that ability, correct, right now?
I can't recall if we passed that policy.
I don't think so.
We did all our policies
No.
and.
So I think that just.
Yeah, we've had some conversation around it, and I know I've been kind of crossing streams a little bit with e-task a little bit and trying to understand. this
Oh, that's
stuff.
right, we had that.
So that's where some of those conversations.
And not every not every entity passes these remote policies, because on one hand, they seem kind of restrictive. But on the other hand, if you do have a member who, in our instance, we had a member who was seeking cancer treatments and he pushed back hard, say, hey, no, I want to participate in homework. Oh my goodness, that makes total sense. So until you're hit with something,
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so if anyone can develop some debilitating illnesses, that would be great. I'm just saying that joke.
And you're laughing.
So if you're on
That's what a
the,
joke I would make, except I would make it quiet.
I'm not sure if it's in the minute, but if you are in the.
Okay, Mark, we got your back.
I can tell you if you are.
Jeremy.
Yep.
Mike,
Yep.
I do think
And
Jeremy
Dan.
needs to be part of more committee meetings.
yeah, well, it's coming.
If Mike is there.
Mike, Jeremy, and Dan are the governance committee.
Governance?
Yeah. So we will give you a.
Same head of hair.
I gotta be with Jeremy. again.
Yeah, so in
Yeah.
December,
Month is bad enough.
for your Christmas present, we're gonna give you a packet of stuff to review to be ready for your January governance committee.
Hardly wait.
It sounds like really good Christmas Eve reading.
I'm not necessarily assuming this would happen like this year immediately, but would that annual meeting be the sort of time frame when we would, as a board, consider like new board membership things?
It's supposed to be, yeah.
Expansions that
Yeah.
we've at least loosely talked about.
Yeah, so
Needs the alternative.
I don't, this is a question, we have a list of questions Courtney and I have come up with. But one thing I do know that the land bank does is they do elect a new board every.
Our
annual-
bylaws.
Ours are different,
Until your replacements.
right?
But
But we have the ability to add members, correct?
so that's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Expand it.
You know, there's a few that we've been talking about, and we would like to have a little bit more diversity and specifically females should probably be a
Well,
part of
and
this
there are
board,
gonna
but
be at least several of these sort of,
larger ends.
larger entities that are gonna be involved, that I think that makes a lot of sense.
Right.
too.
Yep.
Does the city know? I mean, I would assume that if they do sign on, they'd be large enough to have.
That was that was explained to them, yeah.
Melissa, one of the non-attorney professionals in my practice group, which we have this person strategically, is to do full-time compliance. So one of the things, Jewel, that you've met,
Mhm.
she's very experienced in ABO compliance, and you don't need to pay a lawyer we operate at lower rates, but
Okay,
and I don't want to do that type of either, but she'll really help you. I mean, website compliance, she's got whole checklists of things.
Great.
And ECIDA uses her and our other
Right.
clients, the ILDC.
Well, we should schedule a meeting with her. If you could get us the information, that would be great, because we're kind of tackling that in December, just to make sure we're ready.
Yeah, I gave a very high level overview of all the things that we got to start thinking about, but the devil is in the details.
Yeah.
And the details can change with some regularity too.
Right. Okay, perfect. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so that's it for me, but I do have a discussion piece, which is why Bob is here today. He's going to give a brief update on our real property tax. I'm going to turn down the heat.
Alex, please.
He fired the forge.
We're all in the dryer.
Exactly. Oh my
What else on
God.
spin cycle?
There's
Yeah.
water. over
It got real warm out here.
I don't know, we got enough.
We got here at 63, now it's 90.
Dragon fire.
Legs, refreshments.
Oh, I don't know if that's gonna work. All right, Bob, you're up.
Ivan?
Yep.
Thanks, Melissa. So as we've talked at least one other time, the assets that are placed on the pole and in the conduit and any real property that's installed above ground or underground is taxable for real property tax purposes. All of our agreements, our standard IRU, we have language in there that does, it's gonna be non-recourse to us. I mean, unless we get serious pushback, we are passing those costs on to our end users. But we are trying to avoid having to pass that cost down in the first place. So the assets are taxable. There was a push in 2018, I believe, to amend the New York State real property tax law that was going to provide an abatement. It was a 10-year abatement scaled down in percentages, try to make decrease the cost and encourage the installation of fiber. In the first instance, that never passed. But in pursuing this project, we're putting about $30 million of improvements in the ground, and it will be taxable. The improvements are taxed under a different structure. So the New York State Office of Real Property Tax Services does the assessing. And I think they do that just to have a clearinghouse, so you don't have a battle of the assessors and Verizon's arguing it's done one way or not the other. But ORPS has an interesting process, and it's always in arrears. So by way of example, we're putting in infrastructure in the ground this year, 2023. It's taxable the minute you put it in the ground, and notwithstanding that we're not for profit. And we're going to be getting 501c3 status shortly as well. That doesn't protect us from New York State real property taxes if when we start operating at all. So we are subject to tax despite our 501c3 and New York State not-for-profit status. We put stuff in the ground, it's really taxable on day one. If you started building a commercial building, it's taxable. The ORPS process is really interesting. You put so let's use my example. We're putting stuff in the ground in 2023. In about April of 24, we're going to be required to provide some sort of accounting or asset capitalization schedule to ORPS. We'll submit that via mailing. ORPS will take that information, and in December of 2024, ORPS will assign an assessed value to our improvements, and they'll send notice to the town where our improvements are located saying, hey, town, ErieNet owns fiber from this mile to this mile, and it's to be assessed at X. Now the assessor just plugs that assessed value into the normal formula, and we and then we would get a bill. But let's look at that a little more closely. We put stuff in the ground in December. We report in April of 24. In December of 24, ORPS sends notice to the assessor that, hey, here's the assessed value. You're good to go to tax. So in December of 24, the first tax bill that is going to be the 25-26 school bill and the 26 town and county bill. So stuff we're putting in the ground now will not even get taxed for 2.5, 3 years. That's really odd. So we had a nice call with ECC. Melissa was on, and ORPS, and we asked them a whole bunch of questions. It's heavy on reporting. It's number heavy. And those reports of the value of assets have to be submitted every year. But think about what's happening here. We're putting stuff in the ground. It's arguably taxable in 23. It's taxable in 24. And it's taxable in 25. It's not getting picked up till the end of 25. So I asked the assessor, I said, oh my goodness, if you can do buildings like this, what a great loophole. I mean, you can put stuff in and never get taxed. She agreed on the phone. We're waiting for that confirmation in email, but that's the way I interpret it as well. Because our one concern was we're starting to put stuff in the ground and it's taxable and we're gonna have to pay taxes. The Orbs person has assured us, yes, it's taxable, but don't worry, we never go back in time. It's only assessment and it goes forward. But recognizing that the infrastructure is taxable, what are ErieNet's choices? Pass the tax bill costs on to our end users. Try to abate it via a payment into a tax agreement with Erie County, and that's possible. Or abate the thing via statutory amendment to the New York State real property tax law. So as we think about this going forward, we don't have to panic that we're taxable in 23 because we're not going to get a bill. We don't have to panic in 24 because we're not going to get a bill. But I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. This entity is prohibited by statute from lobbying. But if efforts could be made to propose an amendment to New York State real property tax law, perhaps broadband with some guardrails. You know, you can imagine the way the law could be drafted for a municipally controlled LDC. You could put guardrails on it because at the end of the day, you really don't want true private ISPs or Verizon getting the abatement. So if there could be a statutory fix, that would be super helpful. The pilot route is very cumbersome. And but the good news about the pilot route
We
is
have to do it with every single municipality.
yes, you're gonna have to bring it into every municipality. So that's why I said it's very cumbersome. And now I'm talking a little out of school because we really haven't even talked to the Erie County IDA, other than at the 20,000 foot level. It's completely doable under the IDA statute. But it would be cumbersome, but it would also give assurance to our end users because you could put a pilot agreement of zero in theory, no taxes, and you could have a
Many of these scenarios, the end user is the taxing government and
Or at least one of the end
so
users. Do we have any idea as to estimate of, I mean, you're talking about every taxing district we touch?
potentially, yeah.
Yeah, every time it's just like a building. Imagine a building that sprawls over.
Right.
Right. I mean, I guess if you want to ballpark it, I mean, we kind of talked about this. I mean, we're putting $30 million in the ground. So imagine you built a third. This isn't accurate. It's not precise. I don't even know if it's accurate. But if you put a $30 million building in the city of Buffalo, what would be the tax? I mean, that's kind of the way in my mind I'm thinking over. So that's so I think as we pursue this, I think the idea was we were going to see how the beginning of next year, first quarter, as I believe I don't think I'm speaking out of school. I think the county was going to retain a professional lobbying firm, work on legislation, see how that goes, if it gets legs, if it gets support. If it's not going anywhere or we're struggling, I think probably middle of next year, as we head into the third quarter next year, we probably want to get a little more serious about a pilot solution.
We should have a good idea of the legislative route by April, May.
You're right, if it was going to be put in the budget or something, right? So
June at the latest, as far as if they do a bill.
Who's working on that from the county?
County is gonna.
Yeah, the county. Who's doing what now?
County's gonna enter in contract with a lobbying firm to help with that.
But who from the county is involved with those? Because this is the first I'm hearing of it. So is that
Ben.
Ben?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that probably,
I'm just glad you didn't say EP.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything
Oh,
about.
yeah, but it's coming from the county. It's not bad.
fantastic.
That is true, actually.
Is it? Yeah. So it's the first I'm hearing of it. So,
Yeah.
okay.
do we yet have,
Can you include me in on those discussions?
So I was gonna ask if I could be included.
Yeah, well, apparently it's just Ben,
Yeah.
just Ben and you then?
So I had met with a lobbying firm and then Bob informed me that we can't lobby. So, when those talks were going on, it had already been brought up that could be something that the county would come down anyway, fence wise. So, it's in your budget, just so you know, for 24. And,
No, it's
that's what he told me. So then,
not. No, it's,
I will make sure that all the players could be
Everything in their
involved.
budget,
during
I don't know.
time.
no, it's just a.
Just your slush fund.
It's just, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So Ben is the person.
Yep, and I will make sure that both of you are involved in those talks. And I imagine, even though I can't lobby, I think I could at least participate and only like answer questions if need be about the systems itself and them.
And this might be too in the weeds, but are we talking about New York State
Yes.
or are we talking about the Erie County Tax Act?
New York,
So this is gonna be this is gonna be amendment to New York State real property tax.
Not the new, and why not the Erie County?
Well, I hadn't even thought about that solution. I was picking up on, hey, there's this old bill
Right,
6 or 7 years ago.
Right.
That stalled out somewhere, but it was making the appropriate abatement that would have benefited this out.
right.
If it had passed.
it's a governor's initiative as well. So
I know
it's
the
a
smaller
good
the change,
time,
the more likely it is.
Yeah.
That's why I thought the Erie County Tax Act might be.
potentially a route to look, yeah, but it's a,
Would that be strong enough to abate city,
Why,
village, town and school
We
district?
would have to write it to make it as strong as you need it. But it might just be easier if we're not messing with every county, we're just messing with our own. But again, this, I
Oh,
don't
well, that's maybe
Yeah.
maybe we got that.
and maybe that is it, yeah, it's definitely a good atmosphere right now statewide because it is a governor's initiative as well as the fact that there's all this funding coming down. And it's because it is a federal initiative, it's being considered as infrastructure. But I agree with Bob on the fact that we should really be looking at it as for the nonprofit open access municipal networks versus the entire broadband system in general. So, yeah. So, yeah, any other questions about that for Bob
I mean, the attorney, he's the guy.
before we finish up my report? I do appreciate you coming down and explaining that and all the efforts that are going into that.
Excellent, that's a lot. Back in the.
And that's it for my report.
All right, so moving on to number 5 on your agenda, we had a Audit and Finance Committee meeting. And we'll let the chair of that committee, Mark Cornell, give an update.
Certainly. So, last week we
Well,
had,
that was just a selection committee meeting.
Oh, selection committee, I'm sorry.
Yeah, actually, the audit and finance committee ended up not meeting. You guys were the selection committee.
okay, that's what I was about to say.
Right, yep,
Like,
so,
oh,
yeah.
we didn't have, okay, so.
Yeah, you can just,
We didn't have an official.
Did you turn the heat?
Hi,
on?
great.
no, I don't think that's actually controlling it because I wasn't able to turn the heat on.
Are they trying to get us?
He went to go grab someone before we die.
Okay.
RFP selection
So
committee.
one of the things we had discussed over the last several meetings was the need to get moving specifically with getting an outside auditor.
Yes.
Because we have a lot of requirements that we have to get through. And specifically, we have to be prepared for that sort of April 1st timeframe regarding ABO compliance with our external audit. So we, an RFP went out. The respondents of that RFP were two CPA groups. It was EFPR Group and Drescher Malecki. We had a meeting that was myself, legislator Myers, and John Spears. We also Thomas was there and Courtney. And we discussed the merits of both proposals. They were both competitive proposals. It honestly, our recommendation went to Drescher Malecki, frankly, because of the significant difference in cost. That was the major deciding factor because I believe both of these organizations had shown themselves to be perfectly competent and capable of being our external auditors. And frankly, as an organization, we are a relatively small organization that has a relatively unsophisticated need for outside auditing compared to Erie County, which is a $2 billion organization. So ultimately, we determined Drescher Malecki to be the best fit by a hair, and that is the basis for our recommendation. If anyone has any questions or any follow-up, be happy to answer.
They're a great firm.
They are a great firm. A number of us have had a lot of have had experience with them specifically. They are a local organization, although PR does have a bit of a foot in the door locally. I know I have personally worked with them a little bit through a couple separate agencies that we've had to work with, specifically with the Erie County Bar Association and Legal Aid Bureau. They're outside auditors, and they've been perfectly sufficient. It was just the dollar figure was EFPR was about twice the cost. Some of it does include an amount of travel that would be relevant. They technically have a local office, but it's more office space than anything else where they're parachuting folks in. So that was the basis of our recommendation. I think we're very comfortable with Drescher Malecki. I think we'd like to get this resolution approved today and then move as expeditiously as possible on an engagement with them, so that we can begin sort of this first level of preparations for our annual meeting, because they're going to be significantly involved with that, especially, that first time around, and really getting to understand, our financials and specifically our relationship with Erie County as well.
Yeah, we'll get the engagement letter out right away. I personally am happy that it's Drescher Malecki as well. I have worked with Drescher Malecki for 8 years in my previous position, so hopefully that'll go smoothly. And I know in talking a while back before I even started, I know that they work closely with Lumsden and McCormick sometimes on these mutual projects anyway. And of course, those are our accountants, so that hopefully will be a nice, smooth relationship to get through to this annual reporting.
Is Drescher still there? I know Wayne retired.
I don't know if there are any Dreschers, but there are some Maleckis.
Luke Malecki is the senior partner now. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I've had a good relationship with Luke. He's someone where even if he isn't specifically involved with us, he's always just a phone call away. And that's one of the things that I've come to appreciate with Drescher Malecki specifically, is that although they are a reasonably sized CPA firm, they have that sort of small town mom and pops feel to it, and that level of engagement.
All right, any more questions or comments about the fee? All right, if not, we'll move on. There is no unfinished business on the agenda today.
Already did the schedule.
Already talked about the schedule, so we'll go right into the one resolution that we have for today, which is the resolution to engage Drescher Malecki. So resolution 2023-25, resolution of the ErieNet Local Development Corporation, authorizing the negotiation and execution of an agreement to engage Drescher Malecki LLP for auditing services. I have a motion.
Motion.
Motion by Mike Cornell, second. Keating. We already had discussion, but any more discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? If nothing else, motion to adjourn?
Motion.
All right. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
So on our next meeting, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but Bob has squashed the opportunity to have a holiday party. So I'm blaming Bob. However, we will be having an informal gathering after if you are available. So please.
Event, the
Festivus
Festivus happy hour.
When is this?
This is directly following next week or next month's board. And we just to note, we moved that to 2 so that we're closer to an hour where you may have a drink. the December 19th at 2 p.m.